What's up, guys? So today's video is based upon an email that I wrote recently to my Chew Crew email list. It was really well received, and it's also one of the more important lessons that I could possibly give to someone, so I figured I'd share it with you guys today. And again, I was saying this to someone, I think that about a third of my videos could probably revolve around this idea in some way, shape, or form. It's one of these things where this is a rule for at least for my jiu-jitsu, and so I'll share it with you with that kind of idea. When you've grappled for long enough, I've been grappling for about 20 years, you learn a few things about grappling. And one of the things that I've learned is that there's essentially a paradox that exists in grappling. We'll speak about jiu-jitsu, but you could apply this to grappling, and you can probably use your imagination as the video goes on and apply it to a myriad of other things in your life. And it starts like this. First things first, you have to be independent of the outcome. A lot of times this gets worded something like, love the journey, not the destination. Trust the process, these kinds of things. Almost cliche to think or say at this time, but they are correct, at least in my experience. Because when I really understood this idea on a deep level, and we'll talk about recognizing an idea versus understanding towards the end, but understanding this on a deep level, my jiu-jitsu became more creative because I was able to take chances and go for things. I wasn't constantly, what if myself, It was also something where I became more technically aggressive. And when I started competing, I started becoming one of these people that competes better than they train in the gym, which was the exact opposite of what I used to be, I was competing less than the skill level that I was demonstrating in the gym. And that came from a lot of the what ifs, where I would be in the middle of competing against someone and I would be kind of what ifing myself or holding myself back because I was afraid of losing. I was afraid of the outcome, right? And you can think about how that may affect your training currently. Now, with that, on the flip side, along with being independent of the outcome, you also have to be able to be objective with yourself when you have good and bad performances. Now, you can reword those to be maybe something to the effect of poorly executed techniques versus well-executed techniques. But however you want to word it, you've got to be objective with yourself when you make mistakes. And instead of dusting those mistakes under the rug and saying, I'm working on my journey, I'm not worried about that. You have to be objective with them, and you got to learn from them, and you got to crack them open and learn every little bit and piece and dissect those experiences to see what you can get from them. Because I've said this before on the channel, but failure is the currency by which we pay for our success later on, right? It's all these little mistakes that we learn along the way that make us better. A lot of the black belts that you'll talk to, and if you've watched enough of my videos, then you know that pretty much every good thing I've ever done has typically had a sort of mistake associated with it where it was like, that got me to learn the lesson, and then later on that lesson led to something good. And so that's the second part of it. And so when you put these two ideas together, you get this idea where you've got to roll like mistakes don't exist. You've got to train like mistakes don't exist. You've got to compete like mistakes don't exist. And on the flip side, you've got to be objective with yourself, and you've got to take a magnifying glass to all those mistakes and failures you have to learn from them. And that is the paradox, right? That's the two things working in concert with each other. Now, here's the thing. You can recognize this idea as a good one, right? You can say, you know what, Chewy, that's a good idea. And that's fine. But if you never actually put it into practice, it doesn't really mean anything, and you don't really understand it. Here's a sort of a parallel, if you will. Everybody's got a friend that they've watched a UFC fight with, or an MMA fight with, or maybe even a grappling match. And your friend, who's never trained before in their life, can look at it and go, oh, there's an armbar. That's a choke. They can recognize those things, right? But they don't actually understand what they're even talking about. They can see it, but they don't understand what it's like to do an armbar. They've never used one before. They've never been on the ground before. They've never even tried it. And if they tried to, their movements would be all funny and all over the place. You could think of this like a song. You could probably hear a song and instantly, just by hearing a few beats or a few notes, recognize that music. But it doesn't mean you know anything about music, or that you've actually practiced it, or that you could put it together yourself. And so with ideas, it's like this. You can hear an idea, you can read a quote, you can do all this stuff, but until you put it to practice, it doesn't really mean anything. And so my encouragement to you guys is, if you understand what I'm trying to get at with this idea, this balancing act, if you will, between these two ideas, do something to help you remember it when you get to the gym. So again, you can put that idea into practice so that when you're getting ready to get upset because you lost, or getting ready to get down in the dumps because of the competition, you stop and you start to think about what you did wrong, so you can actually learn from the experiences rather than just, sort of kicking dirt around and feeling down on yourself. So that is the idea that I wanted to share with you guys today about the paradox of jiu-jitsu. Hopefully that's a useful idea for you, for your training. And I know it's been one for me, been a really useful idea for me. So with that said, I'll talk to you guys next time.